All right. Hey, everybody. Thanks for coming. I'm Matt Robinson. I'm the ROS-Industrial Consortium Americas Program Manager. And this is the 2022 iteration of our annual get-together. So it's been 2 years or so. 2020 was the last time we got together in person down in San Antonio. So it's been a long haul. So for those of you who came to automate, walk the floor, I'm sure it was a little different. And there seems to be a lot of excitement about robotics. We got a lot of questions at our booth about what's going on with ROS-Industrial. And so obviously, thank you for all being here, for the contributions you make and for your interest in testing out open source to advance applications in your own organizations. So today, I'm going to start things off today. You should have a copy of the agenda, but I'll start off today. Then we'll go through our different regions. So I'm going to speak for a little bit, give you a little bit of update about what's been going on in the Americas. I'm going to kick it over to Michael. He's our ROS-I Americas technical lead. He's going to give you a little bit more of the what's happening as far as tech developments that Americas has contributed. I'll then kick it over to Chris. He's with Fraunhofer IPA and ROS-Industrial Europe. And then Daryl Lee from ROS-Industrial Asia Pacific will be presenting remotely. So, and then we'll get into the rest of the agenda from there. And I'll give everybody an intro and we'll have a couple breaks, good lunch keynote. So stay tuned. Actually, we're going to have to work through the gameplay a little bit on the logistics because lunch is actually downstairs. So we'll have to figure that out. But thanks again. Things will come up. We'll work our way through them. Without further ado, I'll get going. Right. So like I said, it's been a little while since we all got together. We did do this annual meeting online last year. But I'll try to sum up some of the things that took place over the last year, maybe a little crossover, but I'll try not to do it. We'll talk about some things where we're getting together to try to foster collaboration around events. Obviously, I'll sum up some of the recent things around training. I'm going to try to get rid of some of this Zoom stuff. Maybe not. And I'll talk a little bit about hey, you guys are members, right? So what's going on with your money? Obviously, some good practical outcomes, and then looking forward. So one of the big things that we've done, it's been obviously a very different year. And I think we can all say this about all the COVID years, is that they're definitely different. And it doesn't feel like time actually passed. But we've been doing a lot of work in ROS-2. So a number of you have heard about ROS-2. I know a number of your organizations are still deep in ROS-1 and not even really thinking about ROS-2 yet. But we're obviously, the whole point of the consortium is to maybe be a little bit more out front. So when you do consider going to ROS-2, you have some place to go relative to industrial applications. We try to act as a little bit of a buffer between maybe some of the stuff that's going on in a little bit more advanced communities that are already fine with working off the latest releases and pulling along our industrial friends. And we have industrial friends who have stuff that's been running for 5, 6, 7 years. We want to make sure that they can still take advantage of some of the improvements. So that's sort of what we've been doing around supporting transitions, providing training materials and some how-tos around best practices around porting and bridge use in the interim, and practical advice hey, if you're starting new, you might as well just go ROS-2, things of that nature. There's been a number of a little bit of interesting collaborative projects. Obviously, our friends at Arm Institute here, that's been actually one really great vehicle for fostering ROS industrial-centric development. That collaboration has been really rich. A number of you have actually participated on Arm Institute / ROS industrial-ish projects. So that's been really interesting. We've had a number of projects where it's just the different organizations putting in their own sweat equity. And MathWorks, for instance, is going to talk about one of those today. So that's been a different model for how we're doing collaboration, but it's been pretty good. The other thing is we've been looking at training. We're not quite fully back to full-on in-person training. It's been hybrid. The first go at hybrid training where we had people in, they loved it, right? They got to move robots around. It was a lot of fun. But then we got some feedback that the people online, it wasn't as good of an experience. So we're going to still offer hybrid because there's still interest in being able to do it remote. But we're going to try to work on the kinks for how we best make that experience for the online people meaningful. The other thing is right, Michael's going to talk on tech updates. I'm not going to beat these up, but we're always trying to make what's out there a little bit better, right? So Michael's going to share some things that have been going on around some of the motion planning work and some of the things around the perception tools and some changes we've made. And I'm going to touch a little bit on the working group around interfaces and some other things supporting partners and driver development. So there's stuff going on, and it's great. And all right. So like I said, we did pilot hybrid training. We're going to continue offering hybrid training in the near term. The other thing we're really excited about getting back to is actually taking training on the road, if you will. So for those of you who've been members for a while, we've done training in Seattle, we've done training in Wichita, we've had some talk about some other locations. We've been looking to get a little bit more east, right? So, you know, either like maybe doing events at like Ohio State or at ARM Institute. So stay tuned for those. We're going to be kind of trying to find a way to offer things in different parts of the country to make it a little more accessible to the membership. The other stuff we've been doing is, again, we're focusing a little bit on how we engage our online students when we do hybrid. So keep an eye out for that. One thing that's happened this past year is we were doing ROS-2 and we had some virtual exercises, but now we've got our labs for lab exercises, hands-on with the robots, which is an interesting part of our training, or at least well-received part of the training, is now they're full ROS-2, including all the way down through the motion of the robot, because our labs are with the UR, and UR has a well-supported ROS-2 driver, thanks to our friends at Picnic, among others. But so that's been really nice. So in ROS-2, we've also got we had the bridge and porting as sort of an advanced option. We just brought that forward because the reality is a lot of our partners are still doing a lot of ROS-1. So anything we can do to provide best practices, how to port, if you have to use the bridge, is the best way to implement it. So that's been really well received. We actually piloted our first initial advanced topic. So we get requests for those of you who've already done basic training. You don't necessarily want to do basic training again, right? So we're bringing back advanced topics, and we just actually piloted the perception pipeline in ROS-2 advanced topic last time. Got some wrinkles to iron out, but it was generally well received. So again, I talked a little bit about moving things around and trying to get into additional advanced topics. So for those of you that were on the floor and made it by our demo, yeah, it's scan and plan again, right? We've done various iterations of scan and plan, but what's really interesting this time is trying to maintain that actual application and then leverage either the full application as a workshop to step you through building your own application, or actually use the different segments of it as advanced topics for those interested in, say, setting up a motion planning pipeline, leveraging optimization-based motion planning. Hey, how do we use this open 3D stuff to scan difficult to image parts? So that's what we're looking at there. And like I said, we are looking to actually try to pilot this workshop. This workshop actually was born supporting ROSCON New Orleans, which then became ROS World 21 in an online event. But we liked the idea of that workshop, right? And we had like elements around calibration and like actually getting to the point where you have a working application. So we're hoping to actually spin that out and have those events in various locations. So we're recently, right, this past year, ROS-Industrial got involved with the ROS-2 Technical Steering Committee that's stewarded by Open Robotics. So that's been really great. Our real goal there is to act as a liaison for the feedback that this community has for kind of things, or how they make more effective contributions to the ROS-2 roadmap, or hey, some things aren't working, and if things went this way, et cetera, and potentially plug a little bit more directly into some of the working groups as well. Particularly when we talk about some communication buses, and of course, hardware interfaces working group. It's like one of the first things that came out. So for those of you that have been starting to work more and more with ROS-2, one of the big gaps is there's just not a ton of supported drivers out there, right? So at the same time, there's always been a little bit of a challenge where, hey, there is a driver available, but like, hey, when I switch from one device to similar type of device, different brand, the behavior isn't quite the same, right? So how do we make that experience for end users and developers a little bit more consistent when they're looking from different devices? So this working group is actually thinking about the semantics and making sure like, hey, there's a little bit of a clear way to how do I, if I want to develop a driver for my device, that it like performs consistently when people go from one to mine, right? And that's the goal. It's all open source to the community, available to the community. It's an open working group. So we've been actually getting really good feedback and interest from people all around the world and different types of device makers, as well as solution providers. So that's been really exciting. Did want to touch on a couple of the events coming up. There we go. Registration's open for ROS-Industrial training. So I actually made it a big old QR tag. Yeah, thanks, Dan. If you want to register, I think that might take you either to the page or right to registration. But the registration's live. It'll be in San Antonio in our lab. But like I said, we are going to offer a finite number of online seats as well. So if you haven't done ROS-2 training with us, that's open, and it's July 19 through 21. You can see here I've listed a couple other opportunities. I would like to see if we can get the fall training at a member site. So if you have your organizations interested in hoping a ROS-Industrial training, reach out to me. It's kind of first come, first serve. right? So hopefully, but there'll be other times. But I think at least one training event a year, I'd like to get at a remote site, right? To make them more available to all of you, right? Because not all of us are, in the Midwest or in the East Coast. Keep an eye out for the different World ROS-I Day and quarterly community meetings. Those are both coming up. World ROS-I Day will be in July for edition. We're really excited to be a gold sponsor of ROS-Con this year. It's in Kyoto, Japan. Yep, everyone's excited. I know a handful of you will be making the trip to Japan. We hope to have a handful of folks there. The team at ROS-Industrial Asia Pacific will be kind of taking point, but hopefully from members from all of our region will be there as well, supporting our exhibit, and hopefully we'll have a couple talks accepted. Then of course, we will be back at Automate next year. Yeah, so keep an eye out. We will probably do this event co-located with Automate once again next year. So if you haven't had enough Detroit, don't worry, we'll be back. So as far as where your dollars go, this is kind of my traditional year-by-year breakdown. You can see we had 2019, we had to make a big push on a number of the repos to get some things cleaned up. So there was a lot of technical debt that kind of accumulated. So you can see we went really in the red. But since then, we've been trying to build this back. The one thing I like to point out is when I got here, I thought it was really interesting to add how much of you are taking advantage of your technical support and how much effort we're putting in towards maintenance, right? So software maintenance, you can see the last year expenditure was about 3%, but tech support was only about 2%. We still saw a little bit of a decline in the last year. And I don't know if maybe robot projects were a little bit wound down, particularly at our end user sites, because maybe you had to focus on core things or some things got shuttered or just paused because of COVID. But we saw a little bit of a reduction in technical support. But that being said, right, we're still investing quite a bit in training. You can see half of the consortium budget goes to support training. That's training events as well as creating new content. The big push to get everything working really nicely in ROS2 was a fair investment, but it's worth it, right? So ideally, the training experience for those of you come, you feel like, hey, I'm getting something out of this. It's working pretty good. But just I do want to point out though, right? I mean, if you have a question, your membership comes with technical support, don't hesitate to reach out. So I didn't actually change this, right? So we haven't gotten together. When we did it online, I didn't really do a big, say, roundtable workshop like we're going to try to do to get some feedback. In general, in my casual conversations with all of you, things tend to boil down to these sorts of core topics where we need help. You can see what we've launched around interfaces, right? We got the working group going. We're supporting a couple of our OEM friends on driver development, trying to do a little bit more around resources, right? So, hey, what can we do? The working group will also support this a little bit as well, relative to some sort of documentation to support hey, how should these interfaces be built, et cetera. And we're trying to actually build out more documentation, for instance, with the demo we had this week, where, hey, there'll be some things to help you get it set up, a little bit more explanation on what's going on. And obviously, we're going to talk a little bit more today about ease of use. So I look forward to having Michael share that with us. I do want to touch on a few collaboration opportunities that have been brewing. Robotic blending. So some of you have been around for robotic blending. Actually, I was still at Caterpillar when we kind of wrapped up the last robotic blending project. But SFSA has been really interested. They're the Steel Founders. I'm going to probably butcher the acronym, right? Steel Founders Society of America. They support a lot of small, medium-sized foundries, and they are looking for more advanced tools to do surface finishing applications. So they are a champion. They're like, hey, things are really turning the corner. Maybe we can dust this off. So for those of you that have been interested in the past, we have a draft proposal we're about ready to share with everybody. So if you're interested in reviewing that, we can make that available on an as request basis. I don't want to necessarily just blast everybody. So that proposal is actually complete, and we're just doing some tuning on it, and it'll be out there available. The other one that's been brewing quite a bit is the Open Framework for Additive Manufacturing. So this would be taking some of the existing tools. So there already is a ROS additive manufacturing package, but merging it with some of our tools that enable everything to be updated based on the contour surfaces you're looking at, because not everything's printed on a flat plate, right? So if I've got say a contour that maybe isn't consistent every time, how does my system respond to that if I'm doing additive manufacturing? So that's this open additive framework is something that there's been some interest in. We've got some pieces, and we've got a roughed in proposal on this one too. If that is something your organization is interested in, let me know. We can get that over to you for markup and comment. So I touched a little bit about it, our demo today. That's actually the workshop from the workshop on the left that we put on at ROS World 2021. We had over 60 attendants. So it was very well attended. We got some positive feedback. Ran it all out of AWS. So it was a really interesting way to kind of like teach people how to do like a big industrial robot. And obviously our team loves, it got canceled. We were doing it on the small robot you see on the right. But then like when it went virtual, like, well, we can use a big robot now. We don't have to worry about it being safe around people in a conference center. So, but it was really successful and well received. So we took that core workshop repository we built out, did some work on it. I have to give a lot of credit to Michael, who led that initiative, along with Tyler, here pictured, and a number of our team members back in San Antonio, with some help from external partners as well. Shout out to PushCorp for helping us get the AFD working really nice and the interfacing early on, and our friends at Yaskawa for doing a bunch of support on the interface. So anyways, so we built this out, this new repo. There was a little QR code, and Michael might share also the link later, but feel free to poke around that, provide feedback. You know, we'll be probably continuously adding documentation to that. But the whole point, again, it'll be a foundation for workshops and teaching and understanding some of the more nuances and like how we build some of these motion planning pipelines in particular. So looking forward, obviously, we're going to continue working on educational resources, right? So can you approve that? Locations, workshops, advanced topics, right? So, hey, this is all of us working together, right? So we need your feedback to understand what's important, what are your gaps. We're looking forward to like, how do we help you guys network and work together, right? So I could host all these, we only do one of these really big ones every year, but if there's other like sort of like, we're going to still do our quarterly community meetings as well. But I know sometimes it's online, it's harder to like necessarily collaborate. So if anyone has any ideas, we'll be talking about that throughout the day today. I do want to like revisit the model for how we do focused technical projects. So if anyone has an idea for how we roll out collaborative projects, let me know. And of course, we're going to be sharing some information about an ease of use pilot. So some tools coming down the pipeline. So again, feedback, right? So if there's something if there's challenges your organization or teams have, or you don't necessarily feel like, hey, what is the value of this for my organization? Let us know, right? We can talk about, we all want to work together. We all have different things our organizations are trying to do. I want to help you guys be able to work together, right? So I've had the benefit of sometimes just making introductions and I don't really hear anything anymore. And that's great. That's the point. That's the value for you, is the value for me when I was a member, right? So obviously continue to engage your suppliers. Like for those of you that are end users, like ask them about ROS support, ask them about if they're thinking about interfaces for ROS and ROS tools. And if you need help, reach out, right? So it's your member benefit. Oh yeah, there we go. Give feedback to the 4 pillars, right? So ease of use, capability, interoperability, and human-robot interaction. Anyways, with that said, I have a minute, I think, or 2 minutes for questions or comments. Other than that, I say we should get to work here. Any questions? All right, I guess, oh, yeah, Mike Brewer.
Who's your head of contact? Who's our go-to?
That'd be me.
Okay.
I've been around materials joining, so I can. I'm taking the owner of that one personally.
All right.
Yeah, no, of course. But if that's an area you guys think you might want to be exploring, let me know. But I'll be the point person for that application.